All right, hey guys. So for just a moment, I want you to imagine just for a second that your grandparents are the owners of Disney. That's right. They own the company, the brand, the theme park, everything about it. But here's the dilemma. They have never told you that they own Disney. You never knew about the elaborate movies. You never knew about the theme park or anything about it. They completely just didn't tell you. So how would that make you feel? Anybody? How would that make you feel? Yes? Yeah, exactly. It would be sad. You're like, you left me out. Well, in my own personal devotion time, I have been reading through the book of Judges and about all these powerful leaders who have rose up in a time of evil and turmoil. Judges were the military leaders of this time. Judges like Samson and Deborah and Gideon and Ehud and so on. So the other day, somebody asked me what I had learned or what stood out to me in my reading. And despite the strong leaders that rose up in this time of evil and turmoil, the point that stood out to me was in Judges 2:10. So if you'd like to turn there, or you can wait, any of these that are above, or put it on your laptops, Judges 2:10. So it reads, "After that, whole generation had gathered to their ancestors. Another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord or what he had done for Israel." Now, the book of Judges is the seventh book in the Old Testament, and it is grouped along with Joshua and Ruth, and all together they form the formal prophets. So this verse is in the second part of the categories in this book, and it is in the history of the time of Judges. And before this verse, we read about how Joshua had just died in the land that was inherited to him, and that generation has died as well. And what they're talking about here in this verse is this generation who didn't know what had happened in the wilderness, what had happened in the generations before. And so this generation stopped worshiping Yahweh, and they started worshiping Baal. And you can continue to read that in the verses below. But if you turn back to Joshua 24:20, it reads, if Joshua was telling the people, "If you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods, he will turn and bring disaster on you and make an end to you after he has done good to you." But the people said to Joshua, "No, we will serve the Lord." And the Lord was angry, and that'll make the Lord angry. So in the end of this book, he even mentions the people tell them, "We're going to serve the Lord." And then you flip the page, and these people didn't tell their ancestors and their grandchildren what had happened, and now they're worshiping Baal because they didn't know. So if I was going to title this short sermon, it would be "The Inheritance of the Promise." Inheritance is actually mentioned 220 times in the NIV translation of the Bible. 201 of those times is in the Old Testament and 19 in the New Testament. So it is a constant theme that we see in the Bible. But just imagine being the Israelite people, the ones in the Moses generation. You were just taken out of Israel. You spent 40 years in the wilderness. You received the law, and then you didn't go into the promised land. But then this next generation went to the promised land with Joshua. And you're the generation that saw the promised land, and you never told the next generation what had happened. They were under a new generation and a new leadership in a new land flourishing, and they never told the people of what God provided for them. Now, I worked in a restaurant for 4 years, and out of the 4 years, 2 of them I was a waitress. It was the best time. I absolutely love waitressing. I love to get to talk to people. I love my regular customers. They made my day. So when I was getting ready to quit, I had all my customers ask me "Hey, what are you gonna go get your bachelor's in?" And I was like, social work or communications. But I never told them I wanted to go into full-time ministry, because the town I lived in, there wasn't a lot of Christians, and being one was very rare, and this was just something that people really judged you for. So I just didn't want to tell people. But then my last week of working, I felt so convicted. I'm like, okay, if somebody asks you, you're going to tell them. And I'm going to be honest, my customers looked at me weird. My tips were really, really bad that week. I'm just saying. They were really bad. But I had people try to talk me out of it. They told me I was foolish for wanting to do this. They thought I was being very unwise, being a female, being a young girl who wanted to move to Florida to study ministry. So it was hard, because I wanted to tell people what the Lord had done for me, but then I was being combated with the negative emotions of them telling me not to. So how do we tell people the inheritance of the promise? We tell people we own Disney. Or in other words, we tell people that we own the inheritance of the promise. Because the inheritance of the promise is better than anything, part. It is better than anything in this world, any materialistic thing in this world. But we need to tell people that we own the inheritance. Because I would hate for my grandchildren to never hear about what the Lord has done, or the Lord in general, and that to be on me. So we need to go out and we need to tell people. And so in concluding, I'm going to read Ephesians 1:18. It says, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope in which he has called you, and the riches of the glorious inheritance in his holy people. So Lord, I just thank you for this time, and I thank you for this reminder. Lord, I just pray that you'll continue to guide us in faith and in boldness to just proclaim the gospel to people and to live in the inheritance that you have promised us, Lord. And I thank you for this time together. Amen.
Amen.